Donald Trump threatening a country over fees on a 51-mile canal. Panama Canal is controlled entirely by the Republic of Panama. It's not property of the United States. Saying otherwise is jingoism and colonialism. Panama fully owns and administers it as an agreement. 1881, France began work on that canal and stopped in 1889. 1904, the USA took over the project and opened the canal in 1914. By 1915, 1,000 ships had gone through. 1977, the Torrijos Carter Treaties began total handover to Panama. Then it was a joint venture between the United States and Panama until 1999. The Panamanian government took total control, except for a set of a couple of rules that have no expiration date and are a treaty between Panama and the United States. This concerned permanent neutrality and operation of the Panama Canal for fair access, neutrality of the canal, for all nations, nondiscriminatory tolls. Nobody would be charged less or more. No one gets a special deal, Donald Trump. But only Panama may maintain and operate the canal and its own military installations for it. Unless they request help, there is no intervention possible, except under a very specific condition, one extra condition. The USA reserved the right to exert military force in defense of Panama Canal against any threat to its neutrality, meaning anyone manipulating it. Specifically, everyone's figured out that that would affect China. In 2017, Carlos Varela was president of Panama and severed diplomatic ties with Taiwan to appease China. Basically, any bully gets away with whatever they want to. They keep doing it. Don't ever let the bully win. Tell China go to hell. China is asshole. Annually, 1,400 cargo ships go through the Panama Canal. That's 6% of the global trade. 66% of it is USA and 17% is China. And the United States, having a spoiled brat for a president, saying he's threatening to take over something that doesn't belong to him because nobody tells him no and snaps him on the nose with a newspaper, is a problem we all have to put up with now. The only option here is if there is an attempt at enforcing or causing a lack of neutrality, meaning the only country that would be allowed to interfere in Panama by helping them not have a neutrality problem, if Trump is involved, will cause it. They do the fees neutral. It doesn't belong to us. It was a fair deal between us and Panama. Donald Trump destabilizing and or ignoring treaties we've signed is just, I mean, do you want to invoke history of every other dictator? Okay. Donald Trump is a wannabe dictator. And every one of his seething, drooling helpers that he keeps putting in, Musk comes to mind immediately, isn't really helping anything. Him yelling and screaming about how Canada is a 51st state and all that kind of crap. This is what we're depicted as. We are turning into Britain. We're turning into the joke that people make about Britain and their attitude. You know, the joke about, oh, well, every country on the planet, all their valuables are in the British Museum, that sort of thing, or the joke from Indiana Jones. So why am I doing this video? Again, emphasis added to every one of you that actually gave a shit when you were paying attention in civics class. I'm over 55. I took civics classes, and I read history more now than I did when I was a kid. But even then, what we learned is that, I'm going to just round it off, this kind of behavior is the same shit that caused Mussolini and Hitler to happen, and many other despots at the time. We spent many, many years fighting people just like Donald Trump with they ran another country. And this is exactly the same thing, period, full stop. This is not a discussion. That is what it is. Now, you're being pig-headed. You're not listening. Me saying you can't tell me X, Y, Z. That's the kind of crap Waptec complains about. Yes, it is. There's a point beyond which you stop listening to the both sides argument and you say, you're going to have to accept that this is the thing. When we have an overwhelming level of majority at this point, the need to keep the gloves on is not there anymore. Trump is going to pack his cabinet, kitchen cabinet, as its original name was. That's actually where the term comes from. With people who are yes men, because that's what he does. He doesn't challenge himself, and most presidents don't. And the United States population voted in a fuck ton of people that gave the Republican Party a majority in actually controlling the government and put this despot in power. The American people have chosen to do this. Call it a great experiment. We'll do so. Picking a fight with a country we rely on in order to have shipping go through at all will play into the hands of China. Donald Trump is a Manchurian candidate, always has been. Not because he's intending to be, but because he's extremely easily manipulated, because he's vain, ego-based, arrogant, and mind-bogglingly stupid. He's a putt and sucker. He's gonna help Taiwan get reabsorbed. He's going to take sides with Russia and screw over Ukraine, which means that he's going to be an undeclared agent for Russia, just like always. All they have to do is rub his ego just the right way, and he'll do whatever he's told. Wind him up and watch him go. And that's all that's going to keep happening. This doesn't just have a historic precedent or whatever that we don't have any right to do anything there. The only thing we have a right to do is if somebody else was trying to create a non-fair, non-neutral condition. Donald Trump wants to cause one and is going to use this rule. There's a form of irony here that I'll talk about in a minute, but he's going to do this specifically because the reason that rule is in place is to prevent a person like him from doing this. Because remember, this was 1977 through 1999. We had all sorts of countries that were run by, a lot more countries that were run by dictators. One of them comes to mind immediately concerning people being tossed out of helicopters. And in Argentina. And that was what was feared because if the country of Panama, Central America is where Panama is, decided to have a despot run it and hold the whole thing hostage, the U.S. government wanted to have the option of being able to go in and say, yeah, that used to be ours and we had an agreement with the government you just overthrew, and the only time we can interfere is if you take away the ability for the Panama Canal to be completely neutral and fair. And guess what? We're not leaving. That's what it's for. Not for our own little Pinochet to take over and cause shit to happen. I gotta wonder who put a nickel in his ass to cause this or paid him off. Remember, Donald Trump, if you're not aware of this, ran for president originally kind of as a joke, mostly a meme, and then also is now running to simply prevent himself from being thrown in prison because he's a felon. He's guilty of 35 convictions. He should be thrown in a prison cell, but rich people never go ahead and serve any time. And he's talked about pardoning himself and pardoning everybody around him and has already done it. People who are guilty of shit that's worse than the claimed offenses of Snowden and such have been pardoned because they sucked up to Trump. Everyone who participated in a revolt that he deliberately caused January 6th, the last time he was going to be put in charge, or going to lose at that point, he's going to be pardoning them all. That's his promise. Whether he does it or not is dependent on whether he feels like it that day. And then people have the nerve to bitch about, Biden just pulling the dick move he did. It's a dick move. He shouldn't have done it, but at this point, no one cares. Gander and goose, right? Now, why am I complaining about this? This is going to have the effect he wants. Panama will try to appease him because they're used to dealing with despots. Canada is treating the United States government as if it's run by Adolf Hitler. That is why they're accommodating for. Well, they're yelling at their main person in charge for not appeasing Trump and not taking him seriously. The reaction should be, I refuse to take him seriously because we're an independent. Because if I was running Canada, we're an independent country. We can just simply spend 4 years not interacting with the United States and let them wallow in their shit. That's called having a backbone. That's what we would do if Canada told us to go fuck off, right? We'd wait for whatever leader opened his stupid mouth and did that, and wait till they were removed from office by refusing to interact with them. Not by import taxes or duties or tariffs, but by closing the border or whatever, and saying, no, not until you're removed them from office. The United States and most other big countries love causing governments to overthrow, democratically elected officials. The United States is notorious for this shit. So is Britain. This behind the, black site behavior. But to overtly say, until you remove them, we're not going to interact with you, no diplomatic ties. That's something the United States used to do. Canada should do it to the United States and not respond by saying anything to placate Trump and refuse to communicate with the president until he's removed from office or isn't there. He can't run another time after this point. Although I'm very sure you're going to hear machinations in the background of people trying to put him in as El Presidente for life. Or somehow put him in a position where he's always in power so you can't get rid of the fucker. Now, the first thing that for some of the trolls, they're just trolls. They're going to say this is Trump derangement syndrome. No. This is history. And paying attention to it. Trump is picking fights with each country that he feels like because he has no self-control and he's irrational and he's dangerous to us as a country. And the way this should be handled is that the next country, if anybody out there cares what I have to say, the next country he pulls the shit with, if they're a democratically elected, leadership in their country, like in Canada, that they all band together and say no. And what happened in Canada is a bunch of people are suck-ups to Donald Trump because that'll get them in power, decided to use this as a wedge to drive every one of the annoyingly predictable fall apart at the least little thing, liberals to abandon all hope. And this is a message to any of you out there that are libtards like me. Stop kicking at each other. And also, don't kick at your friends that are conservatives. They're not the Republican Party. They are conservatives. It's a bias on how they want to do things in life that involves being kind of scaredy cats about things, but doing it in a way that says, I don't want to cause a disaster by trying to fix another one. That's a very good summary of how conservatives work. They don't want to destroy things. They don't want things going to hell for themselves and anybody else. You can appeal to that. More importantly, you can communicate based on that because that's what's really going on with them most of the time. Yeah, I would see them as maybe being not as reckless and maybe being a little scared about stuff, but isn't that something that, that's not really terrible. That's just, be careful about things. That's called conservatism. But they're watching this shit happen and they're not calling them on it. Well, some of them did. A lot of people did. But not enough. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. We'll all need it. And yes, Trump will keep doing this. Just like China will pick a fight with the United States and then wait for an accommodation. Or was it North Korea? Which country used to do that? Now they just outright park a ship off our coastline is the next step. Is that it? Keep forgetting. Goodbye.